And people will hurl insults against people like me for saying this stuff and try to frame it as if we are just trying to protect the rulers. But no, we're trying to protect the Muslims. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome all viewers. Now, I know the past month of some of the back and forth between myself and other individuals, it can be triggering, it can be tiring, it can feel like an emotional roller coaster. I know we all want to get along. I know some of these things, they're just stressful, they're confusing. But the reality is, this life is a test. And part of this test is learning our religion and trying to act upon that beneficial knowledge. And nowadays, with so much misinformation being spread, if things aren't clarified, then the consequences can be devastating. And subhanAllah, Allah is the best of planners, and things are really playing out in a way that make the truth clear and manifest, inshallah. So today, I really want to show how the underlying ideology that certain people are pushing is becoming obvious. And I ask that Allah make this beneficial, and I ask that Allah guide us to the truth and cause us to accept and implement the truth. Now, about 1 month ago, I posted a video entitled Dangerous TikTok Da'wah. In that video, I brought attention to the fact that certain dangerous groups are pushing their ideologies on a platform aimed at children, such as TikTok. The groups that I mentioned specifically were the Khawarij and Hizb ut-Tahrir. Now, one thing about people who are walking in the footsteps of the Khawarij is that they never want to be associated with the Khawarij. This is because the Prophet ﷺ clearly warned against them. So even the most hardcore Khariji would never identify as being from the Khawarij. In fact, they themselves would refute the Khawarij. However, they would refute this group by really belittling and misrepresenting their true beliefs. Otherwise, you'd be able to put 2 and 2 together and say, wait a second, that sounds like what you're pushing. So even though over 1.5 years ago, Abdurrahman of Knowledge North and myself put out several videos about Hizb ut-Tahrir, it was the video showing commonalities between the two groups, which I posted a month ago, that really made the guilty catch offense. So even when this individual made a response video clearly and blatantly exposing that his beliefs really did stem foundationally from groups like Hizb ut-Tahrir, some people came out and defended him and his ideology. And this is because such people obviously share many of the same beliefs as Hizb ut-Tahrir. And I've said all along that Hizb ut-Tahrir and the Khawarij, they're not exactly the same. However, they both do share certain foundational deviations. And if you understand the history, the beliefs, and the reality of both groups, then you'll find that one thing both groups heavily focus on is rebelling against the rulers. And this is the clear path that such groups lay out for their followers to walk. But they'll usually hide this fact, because most Muslims can see the severe danger of such rhetoric. However, I think because so many people have been defending the rhetoric of groups like Hizb ut-Tahrir over the past month, this individual here, a member of Hizb ut-Tahrir, felt emboldened enough to blatantly incite khuruj on TikTok.
Yes, we are allowed to rebel against the rulers in the Muslim lands today. Yes, we are allowed to rebel against the rulers in the Muslim lands today. Yes, we are allowed to rebel against the rulers in the Muslim lands today.
Now, do you see the importance of warning against such groups? Do you realize how important it is for you to be able to identify such groups so you can protect yourself and your family from them? In my last video, I highlighted how such groups manipulate texts from the Quran and Sunnah to falsely push their ideology. So you really shouldn't be listening to them because they are going to confuse you, attempting to lead you astray. But given the reality of social media today, any and everyone can talk about Islam. So you need to be able to identify such rhetoric. And why is such rhetoric so dangerous? Well, first and foremost, it's because they're misrepresenting Islam and its teachings. However, without even getting into the complexities of all of that, think about what rebelling against rulers actually is. Imagine you or your children joining a group that's trying to overthrow a government. What do you think is going to happen to you? What have we seen happen in the past few decades when governments were overthrown? We saw some of the worst things that are imaginable. And people will hurl insults against people like me for saying this stuff and try to frame it as if we are just trying to protect the rulers. But no, we're trying to protect the Muslims. For the sake of argument, okay, just hypothetically for the sake of argument, let's say that we were in a situation where there were rulers who actually were outside the fold of Islam. Do you think you could overthrow them? What do you think would happen if you tried to overthrow them? Let's say somehow after all this fighting and killing and bloodshed, you were able to overthrow them. You think you would be able to replace them and be better than them? Have we not learned anything regarding what happened the past few decades when people tried this? And in closing, I just want to mention this allegation of being agents. The reality is, actual agents who work for these different companies, the exact thing that they try to do is push the Khariji ideology on individuals so that they can imprison them. Or, if we want to get really conspiratorial, they'll push that ideology on them so people can actually make khuruj. And then they can destroy the country. They can destroy the people. And even though people might say, oh, we're not calling for khuruj, if you look at the things that they're saying, and the rhetoric lines up with groups like Hizb ut-Tahrir, one after another, after another, after another, you'll find the end game is, in fact, khuruj. Just think about it. If they say that a Muslim ruler has to rule by the Sharia 100%, otherwise they're a disbeliever, and then they say that there is no country ruling by 100% Sharia, then obviously this means that all of the Muslim rulers, according to them, are disbelievers. If they are saying that all of the Muslim rulers are disbelievers, and they're pushing for the idea of establishing a khilafah, then obviously they're taking you one step at a time toward khuruj, towards overthrowing these governments, and trying themselves to establish a khilafah. So even though they might say, oh, we're not making takfir of any specific ruler, or we're not calling for khuruj, the reality is the path that they are walking you down leads to all of that.
Yes, we are allowed to rebel against the rulers in the Muslim lands today.
Allah knows best. May Allah protect all of us. May Allah show us the truth and guide us to accept the truth and act upon it. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.